Will you rise in body and spirit as the family enters? Thank you. May the grace of God eternal and the love of Christ and the presence of the Holy Spirit be with you. Welcome to First Congregational Church, UCC. Welcome to all who are with us here in the sanctuary and for those who are joining us online. If you are joining us online, if you go to our homepage, you'll find a link for the bulletin of the service. Just go to firstcong.net, scroll down on the homepage, and click on the link. It will open immediately to the bulletin. We are glad you can join us. Friends, we gather here this day in the shelter of God's healing love. We gather to remember and to celebrate with thanksgiving the wonderful and well-lived life of William Branham Jones, who we knew simply as Bill. In this time and in the reception following, we can share stories and say words of appreciation, affection, and love. We can thank God for Bill's life and rejoice in all that each of us were blessed to share with him and to commend him to God's eternal care. We gather also to support one another. We support each other in our common loss and to receive God's care. Through prayers, songs, scripture, we hear God's reassuring words to us, God's promises of steadfast and everlasting love, and to receive all the blessings God has for each one of us. Through these words, we share unending love for Bill, and it gives us a glimpse of a love that never dies. For we are reminded that nothing can separate us from the love of God. I met Bill when I became the interim associate minister here at First Cong about a year ago, February. And I have had the privilege of getting to know Bill through various conversations when I would visit Martha and Bill at Fraser Meadows. But mostly, I know Bill through the weekly gatherings of the men's breakfast. You'll hear more about Bill's place in men's breakfast when John Edlin speaks. But when I started attending men's breakfast, it took a few weeks for the men and myself to get used to one another. But since then, we have continued the tradition of the men's breakfast of gathering together on Fridays to share our lives and our faith journeys. Bill was instrumental in my feeling accepted in the group. He always contributed to the discussions, and he was sure to make me feel welcomed. After a couple of months, I visited Bill and Martha's home, and Bill was intentional to voice his appreciation of me. And he said to me, "I don't know how this all works as far as how long you'll be at First Cong, but I sure hope we can keep you because you've become an important part of our group in our church." And since then, I've treasured his encouragement and special friendship. So here I am today with the honor of celebrating Bill's life with Martha, their 5 children and their spouses, their grandkids, other family members, and the rest of us in this room who love Bill and whom Bill loved first. Bill has given us another gift that I want you all to be aware of. He chose the music and the readings that are included in this service. I think you'll see that woven through each piece we hear today, there is the thread of the love of God, as a reminder to each of us how dearly loved we are by God. So as we begin, will you stand in body or spirit and join me in the call to worship? We will remain standing as we sing our first hymn. This call to worship is from 1 Corinthians 13. I'll read the regular text, and together we will read the bold print. Love is patient and kind. It is not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrong, but rejoices in the right. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends.
Hello, I'm Myra Davis. I'm Bill Jones's niece. The following quote is from the book The Quest for the Historical Jesus by Albert Schweitzer. He comes to us as one unknown, without a name as of old by the lakeside. He came to those men who knew him not. He speaks to us the same word, follow thou me, and sets us to the task which he has to fulfill for our time. He commands, and to those who obey him, whether they be wise or simple, he will reveal himself in the toils, the conflicts, the sufferings which they pass through in his fellowship. And in an ineffable mystery, they shall learn in their own experience who he is.
Good morning. I'm Marty Reibold. I'm Bill's son-in-law and delighted to be here. I am honored to have the opportunity to fulfill one of Bill's requests, which was a reading from the book, The Five Gospels. Luke 10, there was a man going from Jerusalem down to Jericho when he fell into the hands of robbers. They stripped him, beat him up, and went off, leaving him half dead. Now, by coincidence, a priest was going down that road. When he caught sight of him, he went out of his way to avoid him. In the same way, when a Levite came to the place, he took one look at him and crossed the road to avoid him. But this same Samaritan who was traveling that way came to where he was, and he was moved with pity at the sight of him. He went up to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring olive oil and wine over them. He hoisted him onto his own animal, brought him to a nearby inn, and looked after him. The next day he took out 2 silver coins, which he gave to the innkeeper, and said, "Look after him, and on my way back I'll reimburse you for any extra expense you have had." Thank you.
I figured the place would be full. Forgive me if I reminisce a bit, but this is called Remembrances, so I guess it's appropriate. I've known Bill Jones for 65 years, probably longer than anybody here except the family. Sometimes in a discussion or a conversation can be interrupted for a long period of time. Days, even weeks or months go by, but then it's restarted just where it ended. It takes a really close friendship for that to occur. Bill and Martha were like that with my wife and I. My wife Barbara and I started law school and we came to Boulder in September of 1957. We joined the young couples group at the First Presbyterian Church. Bill and Martha were among our first acquaintances there. After graduation, we bought our first home in Martin Acres. Bill and Martha were only a few blocks away. Our 2 kids were born just about the same time as their 3 kids, one after the other. They all went to Martin Park School, I think. Bill taught at CU, and I commuted to Denver. But we saw each other regularly at church, and for a short time we sang in the choir at First Pres. Later, Bill and Martha built a beautiful home, and with their 3 children, a larger home, in the new Fraser Meadows subdivision. Bill was a member of the Barbershop Quartet Society. He asked me to come to one of their rehearsals. He was recruiting me, I guess. I picked him up in my recently purchased sports car with the top down. On the way home on the turnpike, US 36, I suspect I was going a bit fast, and Bill kept holding on tightly and saying, "Slow down, Carl, slow down, Carl." With several other couples at First Presbyterian Church, my wife and I, with Bill and Martha, helped organize an experimental Presbyterian congregation with the stated intention of remaining a house church without a building. After a year or so looking for a better congregational and corporate experience and a good choir, Bill and Martha moved to the First Congregational. I think there were additional reasons. Years later, after our children went off to college, my wife and I moved west of Broadway. Bill and Martha went off to Norway. Our children took different paths. And although I was in corporate law with an oil company and Bill was an educator and a mathematical researcher, our politics and our theology seemed to follow in the same tracks. Bill, however, was more perceptive and challenging. Bill and I had wonderful discussions about politics, city government, the university, and many other topics, seldom about mathematics. Through the years, there would be weeks or months when we would not see each other, but then one would call, or we would encounter each other at McGuckin's or on the street, and we'd pick up just where we left off the last time. My wife and I moved to Fraser Meadows Retirement Community in 2009. Bill was there to help after my wife passed away. Shortly thereafter, Bill invited me to join a men's morning discussion group, the Geezers, one of several, I think, that he belonged to, which, having started here at First Congregational, was moving to Fraser Meadows. We saw each other more frequently, and soon thereafter, he and Martha moved into Fraser. Again, although the conversations hadn't occurred for weeks or months, they picked up right where they left off. Bill was a remarkable gentleman in the old-fashioned Southern style. Looking at those pictures, I'm reminded how professorial he looked. If you characterized a math professor on TV, it would be Bill Jones. I seldom saw him lose his composure. He never seemed to be angry, and I can't recall that he ever said anything untoward or unkind about anyone, at least not in my presence. Bill was a remarkable, well-loved, and respected gentleman and a friend.
I'm, I'm Rob Jones, Bill's son, and I'd like to say a few words that were written by a long-term friend and colleague of Dad's, Kent Goodrich, a professor of mathematics at the university. I was lucky enough to know Bill for over 50 years at the University of Colorado. An important part of his life was being a research mathematician. This began when he received his PhD at Vanderbilt University in the field of continued fractions. This field is used in approximation theory to give fast and accurate estimates. Bill worked at what we used to call the Bureau, now called NIST. He learned more numerical techniques there, but he soon moved over to the university to do mathematics. He maintained a relationship with the Bureau, but at CU, he and Wolf Trone formed a group in continued fractions. Bill's contributions to the national and international community are many, but include 117 publications with 2,750 citations. One of his co-workers estimates the number of publications is closer to 190 if you include his invited talks and other reports. Bill produced 6, and I've heard the number is closer to 10, PhD students at CU. These students benefited from the seminar in continued fractions run by Bill and Wolf. He and Wolf Trone wrote a very successful book on continued fractions in 1980. This book is still in print. This is a large number of papers for a mathematician, and mathematics books that are published for this length of time are rare. There are not many bestsellers in mathematics. There was a conference in 2001 to honor Bill and his 70th birthday at Mesa State. The proceedings of the conference were published in the Rocky Mountain Journal of Mathematics. This attracted foreign visitors, and I especially remember those from Norway who visited CU many times. Bill's contributions to the mathematics department are many, but include being chair from 1987 to 1990. Bill was a born diplomat. It takes that to herd a mathematics department. He was an excellent teacher. This is where his writing and speaking skills were important. Anyone who read a letter written by Bill to the editor of the Camera would see what a careful, concise, and precise writer he was. It must run in the family because Martha's letters show why she was such a good teacher of English and history. Bill put our departmental colloquium on a good financial footing. This is important as we are geographically isolated from other mathematics centers. He was editor of our department newsletter, Prime Bits. This has helped the department keep in touch with our students and help bring in millions of dollars in contributions. Bill was the departmental photographer at many formal and informal occasions. And Bill and Martha had many departmental potlucks at their home. After Bill retired, Bill and Martha continued this tradition for the retired faculty. Bill was the ultimate team player. As you see, many of his activities were meant to bring people together. Bill was a kind and generous man. He helped me with advice and mathematical knowledge over the years, and he was a true friend. He and Martha made new faculty feel welcome when they arrived at CU. He will be remembered. As you see, he had a wonderful career doing what he loved. Thank you.
A tribute to my buddy. Hiya, Bill. I know you're here with us in this room today, unless you got sidetracked by a really great hand of bridge, in which case I know you're going to join us when it's over. Mayland and I moved to this area in 2015. That would be a suburb of Boulder called Louisville, and we joined the church soon thereafter. And we got to know Bill and Martha very early. When I found out that Bill was from a small town in North Alabama, I decided he needed a nickname, a term of endearment. So I started calling him Billy Bob. For a Yankee, that seemed very appropriate. Well, he started calling me Johnny Boy. That stuck with us till the very end. 4 years ago, when Bill was very sick in the hospital with double pneumonia, the nurses kept picking on him to get out of bed and walk. He didn't like to do that. I tried to go by every day and get him out for a walk. One of the funny things was he fell in love with my peacock suspenders that I'm wearing today. So I got him a matching pair. And he wore those proudly. But we had a special signal. Whenever we were wearing them, even out in public at bridge games, we would walk up to each other and snap them. Bill was wise, loving, and had a great sense of humor. He was always at men's breakfast, and even though Linda ended the breakfast with a prayer, she would often forget that that's not the end. It always ended with a joke after the prayer. She had trouble remembering that, but Bill often would be the jokester after the prayer, and he had pretty good jokes. Bill also attended all of our men's retreat at the YMCA camp, which is coming up next month, and if you haven't signed up, it's not too late. He was fun at the retreats. He was always wise and loving, but his love of music came out. He would always organize for the church service on Sunday a barbershop sing-along, or just get the men to sing at the Sunday service. One of the unusual things that doesn't happen many times in a lifetime is that Bill and Martha formed a couple's friendship with Mayland and me. We were all four best friends. We did many things. We would play cards together for 2 hours, have lunch, and just talk. Talk about family, talk about sadness, talk about joy, talk about politics. It's not often that you have such tenderness and trust as Bill and Martha did with John and Mayland. On the last Friday, Bill said in men's breakfast, "I'm not having such a good day today." We were scheduled to play bridge with Bill and Martha on Saturday at 10 a.m. But Bill went to his doctor and said, "I really need to start hospice now." So Martha called us and said, "Hospice is coming Saturday at 10, so can you come on Sunday at noon after church?" And we said yes. So Bill had been on hospice 24 hours when we got there. Bill was on his sofa, and Malin sat on his left side and me on his right, and we held his hand for an hour, and we visited. He was pretty sleepy. When I sat down, I said, "Hey, Billy boy, I'm disappointed because I was looking forward to bridge today, but you look a little too tired." And he said, "Johnny, I can beat you at bridge any day of the week, tired or not." A little bit later, I said, "I think this is going to be my goodbye with you." And then we visited a lot with Martha. And then, as I said, it's been an hour and I think we need to go. He took my hand and pulled it to his face, and he kissed my hand goodbye. And I said, "Bill, I'll see you on the other side." It was very poignant, very tender, very Bill, very loving. On Wednesday, his last day, about 10:30 in the morning, I had a strong need out of nowhere to call Martha and check in. And I said, "How are you doing?" And she said, "Really awful." She and I communicate well together. And she said, "I didn't get much sleep last night, and I have an appointment today." And I said, "Well, I'll be there." It was at 1:15. "I'll be there at 12:45 and stay the afternoon." And I did. And when she got back, she said, "Doctor's orders, I need to get some rest tonight." And I said, "Well, we'll run home, get our overnight case, and be there and spend the night." Pastor Chris came by around dinner time, and she had found the letter Bill had written describing this service, and she went in and read it to Bill. And we had dinner with Martha and her daughter and granddaughter, and we stayed the night. And Martha said, "I just want to snuggle with Bill tonight." And we said, "We'll give his medicine and you sleep." And he passed peacefully in his sleep with Martha at his side. It was, if passing can be beautiful, it was beautiful, and we were lucky to be a part of Bill's life and his passing. And I love Bill, and I miss him very much. And I love Martha, and will be a part of your life in the future.
1 Corinthians 13 says, "If I speak in the tongues of humans and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith so as to move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all of my possessions and I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable. It keeps no record of wrongs. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. But as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part. Then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love remain. These three, and the greatest of these is love. It seems such an obvious choice to me that Bill would pick 1 Corinthians 13 as one of the passages for his memorial service, because he consistently demonstrated his faith by the love he expressed his whole life. He loved his family. He acknowledged to me that he wasn't perfect, but he tried to make sure that his family knew that he loved them. Bill and Martha's children revealed the love that they felt as they shared stories of Bill with me. Whether it was the exhilaration of building a balsa wood plane with their dad, or practicing football and baseball skills in their backyard ball field, or watching Bill cook and then eating Saturday morning breakfast of omelets, eggs Benedict, and pancakes. And I can imagine, as one of the kids described, Bill flipping the pancakes into the air without using a spatula. He modeled loving relationships for them. Each time I have spoken with Martha since Bill died, she has been sure to remind me Bill was a special man. She witnessed how he loved their children, and she experienced his love for nearly 67 years of marriage. Bill loved you, each of you, and he loved you just as you are. Friends, students, and colleagues were beneficiaries of Bill's love. The kids remember hosting groups of his students, colleagues, and visiting family and friends for group games of volleyball, badminton, and ping pong, along with the barbecue. Relationships were so important to Bill. People that Bill didn't even know were recipients of his love. He was never in too big of a hurry to stop and talk to people. One of the kids wrote, "Dad was very friendly, and it was typical for him to strike up a conversation with people he encountered in the normal course of daily life, as well as to greet strangers passing by on a hiking trail. On more than one occasion, these chance encounters led to connections that made it feel like a very small world. He taught me to greet strangers with kindness and courtesy. He said, if you pass someone on a hiking trail or in your neighborhood, you say hello to them or wave. I do that to this day because of my dad." But his love didn't end there with friendly encounters. He loved those who were marginalized by other people. Another one of his children noted, when confronted with someone making an unfair or biased stereotype towards another group of people, he taught me to stop and gently question both myself and others about why they might see that group of people that way. My dad always wanted to see the best in people. And you have heard often through the stories of Bill and Martha's children referring to Bill as Dad. One of the kids recalled an episode of the television show MASH, where Hawkeye's father had surgery back in the States, and Hawkeye couldn't reach him on the phone, and he was in great distress. And Major Dr. Charles Winchester III, he witnessed Hawkeye's distress, care, and concern for his father. And when Hawkeye was finally able to talk to his dad, who had come through the surgery well, he made sure that he told his dad, "I love you." And Winchester observed, "My father was a good man and always wanted the best for me. But where I have a father, you have a dad." Well, I had a dad too. So I didn't know Bill when he was a student or a competitive athlete, or when he was singing in his barbershop quartets or in the choir for decades next to Martha. I didn't know him when he's a young scientist working for the National Bureau of Standards, or when he was a professor of mathematics at CU. But after hearing Bill speak only a few times, I quickly realized how brilliant his mind was. But he didn't hold that intellect over people. Rather, he had conversations filled with gentleness and love. And whenever Bill's name has been mentioned in the past couple of weeks, the comments that followed are, he was so kind, gentle, he was sweet, he was loving. He had every opportunity, and he took it, to make sure that people knew how much he loved them. He could have taken those opportunities to make sure people knew, I'm smart, I'm the smart one in this conversation. But he didn't. One of the kids told me that she never heard him brag or present himself as an important person. She didn't even know he had received prestigious awards until about 6 or 7 years ago, when she saw a picture of him receiving a big award. It was then that she really realized how accomplished her dad was. And she went on to say, I was proud of my dad and his work, but I was always really proud for the person he was, rather than the accolades. 1 Corinthians 13 says, if I speak in the tongues of humans and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all the faith there is so as to move mountains, but I don't have love, I am nothing. Bill didn't want to be a clanging cymbal. He didn't want to lord his intellect over others. He wanted to give other people hope. And he had a great faith. But he knew that if he didn't live out his faith by loving others, it meant nothing. He understood that at the end of the day, what endured is what it says in verse 12. And now faith, hope, and love remain. These three. But the greatest of these is love. I really think it's fitting as I walked in to the sanctuary today, as we were coming in with the family, that I saw all of these hearts. These hearts are from the stewardship campaign of First Congregational Church. They decided on a theme last fall called Come Together, and then they planned to have these hearts hanging here. How appropriate it is that they're here today. It's almost as if God knew. I want to close with one last story from the kids. It would help us understand why Bill wore that worn and torn Ole Miss ball cap all the time. He would show up on Friday mornings at men's breakfast, and we're like, Bill, get a new cap. But he didn't. He wore that cap. The story is this. Dad made a point of stepping outside to wave a white handkerchief as family members drove off after a visit. This was a tradition carried down from his grandfather, Alfred Hume, who served as the chancellor of Ole Miss University for many years. Dad's family often spent summers with his grandparents at the chancellor's big house on campus growing up. My translation of this story is that Bill saw his grandfather wave that handkerchief as part of a goodbye, but to add a little extra so that person would know how special they were. Today, as we say goodbye, I see Bill waving a white handkerchief to all of us. But he also wants us to remember the promise of 1 Corinthians. Love never ends. It never ends. Bill's love is a sliver of the love that God has for each of us and every one of us. What a gift he gave us through his life on this earth. He gave us that glimpse of God's unconditional love. He loved and stood up for those being marginalized. He loved strangers that became friends. He loved students, colleagues, and friends. He loved his family, and he loved his wife. The love that we give and receive from Bill, it continues. It never ends. Praise be to God, who is the source of all unending and unconditional love. Amen. Will you pray with me now? Gracious and loving God, we thank you for your unconditional and everlasting love. We thank you for the gift of Bill to us and to all of creation, for his faith in you, for his advocacy of you, for his advocacy of others who were being marginalized, for his strength and his gentleness, for his unconditional love for all people, and for the ways he continues to live with us through that love. Now, Creator and Giver of life, we commend Bill Jones, our companion on life's journey, into your hands, O God. We now entrust him to your merciful care, knowing you are a God of resurrection, and we are all your people. Amen. Friends, the family would like to invite you to a reception downstairs in Plymouth Hall for cookies and coffee. There we can continue to connect with one another and share memories of our love of and from Bill. You can greet the family downstairs in Plymouth Hall. To get to Plymouth Hall, you go out these doors, turn to the right, and there's a stairwell that will go down. If you need an elevator, you can turn to the left, follow the signs that say to Plymouth Hall, take the elevator down to the first floor, and then it'll get you, the signs will direct you to Plymouth Hall. In Plymouth Hall, you'll also see name tags. So if you would please write your name and wear a name tag, this will help the family as you go through and greet them. And one last announcement. After the benediction, we're going to switch the order of the postlude. The family wants to stay and hear Viter's Toccata. As you'll notice in the bulletin, a longtime music director from First Cong, Jane Sawyer, the Sawyer Organ Concert, recorded the toccata, and they would like to stay and listen to that. So we will listen to that together, and then they will exit during Brahms' Requiem, and then you'll be dismissed after that. Okay? Friends, just as the Barber Quartet sang a beautiful Irish blessing, I'd like to send you out with the words that Bill selected for the benediction. Beloved, go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold fast to what is good. Return no evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. Honor all people. Amen.